So guys, I'm finally talking about it. I'm talking about Skylanders Academy in this episode, and we're just going to be kind of reviewing the series overall in this episode. This is going to be kind of a different review. Just a more chill video, guys. So if you guys do enjoy this different type of review video, basically just what we're doing, like I said, is giving the series an overall review in this video. So let's get to talking about Skylanders Academy. So obviously, if you guys didn't know, Skylanders Academy was made in 2016 and ended in 2018. The first year it came out, Skylanders Academy, that was the last year that a Skylanders game actually came out. So that was probably the reason, obviously why it came out, because they were basically planning on shutting down the Skylanders. So they wanted to give it a show. It's weird that they actually finally did a show in 2016, because basically, like a lot of people have said, a Skylanders show idea has been a thing basically since the game got really very popular. You know what I'm saying? Basically, people wanted the show for 4 years or 5 years, and they finally got a show in 2016, which I thought was weird, since if the show was made, like, let's say in Giants, because that was probably the best time it could have came out, like right when Giants came out, the show probably could have went on at least until Superchargers came out, which is really weird that the show didn't come out, and it actually instead came out in 2016, which was, like I said again, very, very weird. So basically the show just revolves around your main characters, which are Spyro, Eruptor, Stealth Elf, Hugo, Chaos, and Glumshanks, and finally Eon. Now, Cassandra does become more of a main character in seasons 2 and 3, but right now I'm just going to talk about season 1 right now. So in season 1, Cassandra wasn't really that big of a deal in season 1, at least until the very final 2 episodes. Basically, Cassandra just come around every now and again to just basically tell Chaos to stop what he's doing and get a job. In one of the episodes, she actually made Chaos go get a job, which was kind of funny. So basically, every single episode of Skylanders Academy actually has 2 plots in it. It has the plot with the Skylanders in it, and it has the plot with Chaos in it, and most of the time with Glumshanks in it as well, which is really cool. And sometimes the 2 plots actually intersect as well, like in the very final episode of Skylanders Academy Season 1, the Chaos and Skylander plot basically become one plot at the very end of the episode, which is kind of cool. So like I said, basically every episode has 2 plots revolving around the Skylanders and revolving around Chaos, and I think this is actually a pretty good idea. Instead of having one episode revolve around the Skylanders and one episode revolve around Chaos, it actually has one episode revolving around the both of them, which is cool to see. You can see what Chaos is doing while what the Skylanders is doing at the same time. So basically end up probably getting around 10 minutes of the Skylanders and 10 minutes of Chaos, or probably most of the time, sometimes 15 minutes of the Skylanders and more like 5 minutes of Chaos. The Skylanders are obviously shown more than Chaos, but let's not get into much into that. So overall, season 1 was a pretty good season, I'll say. I will say this though, the very first episode of Skylanders Academy is very weird. It is a 40-minute premiere, and no other episode in Skylanders Academy ever is 40 minutes long. Usually whenever I'm rewatching Skylanders Academy, just for whatever reason, I don't know, but whenever I'm rewatching Skylanders Academy, I actually skip episode 1 because I feel like it's just such a weird episode. I don't really know why either. It's 40 minutes long and I just don't know why, but I usually always skip the first episode. In fact, I feel like the second episode really is a better premiere than the first episode, in my opinion. Obviously, in the first episode, you get the Skylanders becoming Skylanders, which, like, it is a pretty good way to start the show. It just feels super weird in my opinion, so I usually always skip it. And the rest of season 1 is really, really good in my opinion. It does have some really good episodes, and overall, the end of season 1 was really good. And if you guys didn't know, basically season 2 was confirmed when Skylanders Academy Season 1 came out, so it did end on a cliffhanger, which was pretty cool. The very end of the season, you actually have Chaos basically leaving his mother and going with the Doom Raiders, which the Doom Raiders do appear in multiple episodes in the series, which is kind of cool to see them. It is weird, however, that basically Dr. Crankcase gets replaced by Broccoli Guy instead as a Doom Raider, which is really weird. But if you guys do not know, these 2 series, the Skylanders Academy TV show and Skylanders game, are 2 different canons, so it doesn't really matter that much. Also, another thing I want to say is that in episode 3 of the Skylanders Academy TV show, you actually have a YouTuber, Dan TDM, voice one of the characters that is Sai. And I don't know why, it's just really weird for me to hear his voice come out as Sai. I don't know why. Whenever a YouTuber voices a character in a TV show or video game, I always just find it really weird to hear their voice. And it's just really funny that he does actually voice a character. It's kind of cool in my opinion. And also, in the second to last episode of Season 2, we actually do get Crash, which is just very weird in my opinion. A lot of people say it's like super weird that he talks. It's not a game breaker for me, but it is kind of weird that he talks. But basically in that episode, we just get Crash coming and then Crash going. And it basically leads to the end of the Season 1 actually, where it uses all of Eon's strength to actually get Crash back home. So they have to go to the Citadel, which is actually basically the main hub world of the first game, which is actually really cool to see that happen. Then we got Season 2, and I think a lot of people actually think that Season 2 is the best season, which I personally do not agree with. I do think Season 3 is the best season, but let's talk about Season 2. So, if you guys don't know, the first episode actually opens a pretty strong first episode in my opinion. It shows that Spyro is basically having paranoia over that he doesn't have any superpowers per se. And this episode basically leads to the entire plot of Season 2. Basically, Spyro eventually figures out in the first episode that he has impenetrable scales, and it makes him want to think more about where he came from, which basically sets up the entire plot for Season 2, that Spyro thinks that Eon's hiding something from him, and he thinks Eon knows more about his ancestors than he's letting on, which ends up actually being true in the very end, but we'll get onto more of that later. So if you guys don't know, in Season 2, this actually opens up for another character in Cinder to basically just kind of come in, and like, she's not a main character obviously, but Cinder does actually come, and it's kind of cool to see. And eventually it is revealed that Malefor is her father, which he is also a villain that isn't in, I think, maybe 3 or more episodes, which he isn't a main villain, but they do actually have to go save Cinder from Malefor. It is actually a pretty cool standalone episode in my opinion. And in my opinion, it is actually the best standalone episode in my opinion, which is really cool to see. So there really isn't that much to say about Season 2. In my opinion, most of the episodes are just more filler episodes and more standalone episodes than actual episodes. In my opinion, this is why Season 2 is actually my least favorite season of Skylanders Academy, which it's still a very enjoyable season for me. I just feel like most of the episodes are standalone episodes, but it does basically still have the same plot around Spyro trying to figure out what happens to his ancestors, and Eon won't tell him. And then, obviously, in the very last episode, Spyro says he thinks Eon knows more than he's letting on, and he says he wants to leave the Skylanders. So then Eon actually eventually does tell Spyro what happened to his ancestors, and it makes Spyro want to go to Malefor, and then eventually he gets caught by Malefor, and then he gets taken to Strikor, because Strikor actually, like I said, in each episode there is 2 plots going around, and this plot for Chaos, which I'll talk about now, he is basically trying to regain his mother's trust for most of the season. He obviously eventually figures out that the Doom Raiders are trying to use him, so he leaves, and then he goes to try to regain his mother's trust, which he eventually does by giving her his powers back. So he gives her his powers, because when for some reason Chaos's power had been getting stronger basically up until that episode, and then Cassandra's power had been getting weaker until he gave her powers, which helped her get rid of Strikor. But then, if you guys don't remember, the Doom Raiders do eventually raid the castle, and they do actually turn Cassandra into gold. So Chaos actually brings Strikor back and basically destroys the Doom Raiders. You don't really see the Doom Raiders after that, so he eventually brings Strikor back. Then he hears about that Spyro has been taken captive, so he goes to Malefor, basically just bargains with him that he'll be like Strikor's lackey after that. Then he brings Spyro to Strikor, and then eventually Strikor does turn Spyro evil. That's the end of Season 2. So then we get on to Season 3, and now let me explain why I do think that this season is the strongest season in my opinion. This season, I think, actually has the best plot. It revolves around Spyro basically just trying to figure out how to destroy the Skylanders, basically, and he has to keep it a secret, while Strikor and Chaos basically just sit back and watch Spyro do the things that he does. I mean, Chaos actually does do some weird things in the season. For some reason, Chaos does actually just leave his father to try to impress him, so he actually becomes a pirate, which is like, it is really funny to see, in my opinion. Obviously, the most of the episodes are just Spyro trying to figure out the secrets of the Skylanders, and he actually finds the thing he's looking for, which is a wampum puzzle box, but he doesn't know how to open it. Obviously, like I said, the two plots of Chaos and the Skylanders basically intervene a lot of the time. And actually, one of the episodes they're in a sky race together, which Chaos actually does win. And I think just the plots of each episode, I think, are very, very cool in my opinion. Also, we do get Flynn in Season 3, which, I mean, Flynn is always funny, and it is great to see him actually on the TV show. So in Episode 9, we actually, Spyro figures out how to open the wampum puzzle box by going back in time to ask Crash, because Eruptor, for some reason, has a report on the Wampum Islands, so they go back in the past and they ask Crash. He doesn't know, and then somehow they end up changing the future so badly the Glumshanks has taken over Skylands, and then there's a Wampum puzzle box there, which is used to bring them back. And then Chaos tells them that we have to have a pure heart to open it, and so then for the rest of the episodes, Spyro tries to open it up by having a pure heart, which he obviously doesn't because he's evil. And then eventually, and basically, I would say one of the strongest episodes of the season, we have Spyro actually eventually opening it up because he actually gets a pure heart, because he actually kind of is turning good now. And then obviously after that, after he opens it, Chaos actually gets the map to Arcus. So then they bring Spyro back to being good. And then in the very last two episodes, which are basically just one episode, it's just Raiders of the Lost Arcus Part 1 and 2, which probably could have been a 40-minute episode, but instead they made it 2 episodes, which really doesn't matter that much when you get the Skylanders trying to defeat Chaos once and for all. And these are actually 2 pretty decent episodes in my opinion. In the first episode, we obviously have Chaos getting the giant machine that will destroy the core of light, and then he actually almost does destroy the core of light, but eventually Eon turns out to be Chaos's father, which is really, really weird. Obviously this isn't canonical with the game, so it doesn't really matter that much, and it actually makes Chaos think about destroying the core of light, which buys him enough time to actually defeat him. And before that, actually they did banish Strikor back, which was just like, it was fine. I mean, it obviously was going to happen, but it was a good way for Strikor to go out. And then in the very end, obviously Chaos and Glumshanks go to prison, and the very last scene, in my opinion, is such a good scene. We have Eon finally telling Spyro that he thinks he knows how to get his ancestors, because obviously Eon was turned into a spirit when Chaos tried to destroy the core of light. Obviously Chaos ended up slipping and falling with his robot, and it made him fall, and then Eon saved the core of light by using all of his power, which turned him into a spirit, and this time a full body spirit and not a head. But then he comes back and tells Spyro that he thinks he knows how to get to his ancestors, but he does warn him that it will be a very long time till he comes back. So before they actually do leave, Spyro goes into the sky and writes Skylanders forever, and you get that shot, basically, at least for now, being the final shot of Skylanders Academy, which I think was such a good way to end off the series. Overall, Skylanders Academy was super, super good. And if we ever do get another game, in my opinion, if the other game does well and they do make other games, they might make a Season 4. Usually after Netflix series do end, they usually don't do them, because that's not how Netflix series work. Or any series really. Basically, whenever a series finale does happen, that is usually the end of it, unless they make a spin-off show. So in my opinion, if Skylanders Academy ever did come back, it probably would be a spin-off series revolving around one of the other non-main characters we had seen before. In my opinion, Skylanders Academy was a pretty good TV show. Your boy Bombo3 basically sums it up in one of his videos talking about Skylanders Academy, where he said that it was a modern kids cartoon. Nothing too over like the top, like groundbreaking, like shows like let's say Teen Titans Go, which I don't think was really groundbreaking, but a lot of people loved it, or Steven Universe. It was fairly popular though, at least among the kids on Netflix Kids, which is why it did get 3 seasons. Overall, Skylanders Academy was a great TV show, and something that I probably will always just rewatch if I ever get bored. And thank you guys for watching this review of Skylanders Academy.